welcome to the Bridges to Success podcast, where we dive into the impactful work of Bridges from School to Work. I'm your host, Jason Sorokin. Welcome to the show, everybody. How are you?
Doing great today.
I want to start by kind of just getting into how each of you got into the nonprofit space and then how you got into this. So Cynthia, I'd love to start with you. Where did your journey start? How'd you end up at Bridges?
So I have worked with people with disabilities my entire career from, I think I'm rare that I went to school for this and ended up in this and all these years later. And my background, my degree is in social work, but I was working with another organization and that was a very long time ago. And then I worked for Bridges. I got a call from the former director of Bridges. Former colleague had talked to him about me, I guess. But, and he told me about the Bridges program and it just sounded fantastic. And I love working with youth. And so, yeah, I came aboard and then I left for a while to raise a family and they flew the nest and I came back. So here I am. So a total of about 7 years, a little over 7 years.
Well, thank you for the work that you do. Appreciate the dedication. That must mean you really like it if you came back.
I do. Very much so.
Chris, how did you get started in the game?
So after I graduated college, I kind of went straight into the nonprofit, working with incarcerated individuals, led me to working with teens on probation and parole, a lot of at-risk youth, and really loved that. Then I from there, I bounced around to group homes for individuals with disabilities, kind of skipped around a little bit more, worked with parents and fathers teaching classes for parenting classes. Bridges happened to be where I landed. It was an amazing opportunity, and I'm so glad I found it.
That's really cool. You guys are working on a special project right now that's kind of outside of your normal jobs, but it seems to maybe have taken over a lot of it. Can you tell us about, what the NextGEN Study is and what you guys are doing with it? Cynthia, if you could kick us off, that'd be great.
So the long name of NextGen is Next Generation, and I'm reading it to make sure I get it right. Next Generation of Enhanced Employment Strategies Project. So the shorthand for that is NextGen. And NextGen is a study, because it's not over yet, is a study. It's a federal research project. And the Office of Planning and Research, Administration for Children and Families, Health and Human Services on a federal level, in conjunction with the Social Security Administration, have asked us to participate in this study. And when I think of what the goal of the study is, it's to show how programs like Bridges assist youth with disabilities reaching their goals, especially in the employment world, which carries over into every other aspect of their lives and, works towards helping them reach their goals and obtain success in their life.
Chris, how are people selected to be involved in the program?
So the first step is that they have to be referred to our program. Initially, that's going to be from the teachers in the school districts. Every once in a while, word of mouth gets around, and some people say, "Hey, I heard about your program. How can we help? How can we get some services?" So whenever we meet with the students, we kind of get to know them a little bit, see if they're appropriate for our program, see if they actually really want to work, and if they're good for competitive employment. It could take one to sometimes a couple meetings. Sometimes, they're not ready for services at that time, but maybe at the end of the year, next year they're ready. So whenever they are ready for services, we sit down with them and we get them enrolled into the study, which is some personal information from them, a survey that we have to ask them several questions. And then after that, the computer will spit out and say, "Hey, you're either in the group that we can help you get services, we can run with you, help you do all this great stuff we talked about, or you're in the group that we call the community resource group, which that group, we cannot assist them for at least 2 years. And that is in order for them to be able to compare the two groups to see how well our services work for those that do get to work with us compared to those that do not.
So there's steps involved, and it's a process. Can you tell me kind of from a study standpoint, how does it work in terms of like what you guys do on a daily basis? What data are you collecting, and what is the overall outcome? Like, how does it end? How does a study like this end?
So the study, we will be enrolling students at the end of June. So this has been a 3-year journey, and there's been a lot of surprises along the way. But the organization, the research organization, they're called Mathematica. They actually do the data analysis. They are part of our team. So the federal government, Mathematica, and Bridges are, I guess, a team. And Chris and I and our counterparts, we're responsible for introducing the study, introducing the program, speaking to parents and schools and students especially about the study and the goal of the study, because we want to make sure they know going in this is Bridges services, hopefully, but also they will be in a, participating in a study. They're really studying Bridges. That's what I always say to my students. You're helping the government study us, because the government wants to see why we're so successful. I think Bridges was known beforehand to be a very successful program as far as placement and retention in jobs. So once a student is selected into the group that receives Bridges services, then they're a Bridges participant, and we collect in our database where we write our case notes and all that. We record what we do with each individual, how we go about it, what services we've provided them along the way, and their accomplishments and how their milestones. So there's milestones along the way as far as work. And Mathematica has access to all of that information, and they can compare that group to the group that does have to wait a couple years for our services.
So essentially, Mathematica is a third-party data science company that puts everything together and makes sure that the data is as accurate as possible.
Exactly.
Perfect. That makes a lot of sense, and that'll probably mean that you get really good data, that you have that extra arm, which is really important. Chris, what are some of the challenges you have faced when enrolling participants in this study?
It is a little bit new process for us. We like to do a lot of vetting for our students and before we take them to an employer. So with the study process, we have to get them enrolled before we officially really work with them. So sometimes, we're used to kind of working with students or participants, and if they work out, they work out. If they fall off, they fall off. But we don't have as much time to allow for that. I know some of the other which means, a lot of what we do is built on our relationships with students, and we build that. So it's hard to build those relationships and get to know them and assess them as we generally would to be able to put them out in front of employers in the system.
Well, it's funny you said, build trust and relationships, because my next question was about, well, how do you build trust and relationships with teachers to ensure that you get the right student referrals for the study?
I think that's always been a difficult one. I'd like to hear Cindy's answer on this as well. But for me, just letting them see what we do and how we work. I've had a teacher I've been working with all year. She's new, and how long is the school year? 7-8 months long. And just a couple of weeks ago, she's like, "Well, now I think I have an idea who you are, what you do, and the appropriate students to send over." So it's kind of seeing how we work with the students and the results for them to know really who we are and the appropriate students to send over, I think.
You have any thoughts on that, Cynthia?
the study is in, many locations across the country because Bridges is a national organization. It was really important that we engage with schools that had never worked with us before. And because we've been around for 30 years, we've worked with so many schools. So we really had to engage brand new schools, brand new administration, teachers, principals, and all of that. And, you know, initially, I'm not, I understand this. There was some reservations. This is a study. Only, some of the students get to engage with Bridges right away. Teachers are protective, as they should be, of their students. And so we had to go in and really, with our personalities and our belief in this program. I mean, I think for me, I wear my heart on my sleeve pretty much. They saw me coming in, and I really believe in what we do. And I really believe, and I've seen, what a job can do for, a student. And I think the teachers gradually and the principals gradually realize, like, okay, this is worth our while. Some staff were quicker to jump on board than others, but you just have to keep engaging, follow up, show them you are doing what you promise, doing what you say, and building trust with the administration. And then once the students see that the teachers that they trust are trusting us, it kind of carries over. But it's different than just walking in. Like before the study, what I was used to is just walking in and saying, hey, we've got this great program. I'm going to help you find a job, and then they just go. So,
well, we talked about teachers, we talked about students. Now I'm curious, Cynthia, if we can talk about maybe some of the different family situations you encounter and how you address the varying levels of motivation among participants.
Well, I think trust is key, and no matter what situation a participant is in, we have some participants who are very close with their families, and their families are a bigger part of what we do in that, we want to make sure the family understands they can trust us. We're out in the field with their child. I'm a mother. I have 2 children the same age as our participants, and I get it. And we're also, asking for personal information. So I think that, again, you just work and make sure you're there to answer their questions. And then we also have students that maybe they are not part of a close family unit. I've had kids who were, housing insecure, food insecure, had been in the criminal justice system. And I think what it really boils down to is this age group, I really believe they can see you, they can really see who you are, and they don't put up with, anything but the honest truth. And so when I just try to be as honest as possible and make sure they understand I'm not an authority figure, I'm more of a partner in this. And I think once they see they've got an adult who's partnering with them, not wagging their finger telling them what to do, that trust grows. And the family as well. So
that makes sense. Chris, what are some of the challenges you face in finding job opportunities in areas with like less volume, and how do you overcome it, especially right now with the turbulent job market?
I will say the past couple of years that we have been doing this study has been different than my other time in working with Bridges, just from the economy coming out of COVID, and everybody seems to be on a different mind state. So you have to adapt. You have to, think differently. One of the things that makes us so great at our jobs, finding competitive employment, is we work to understand the employer's needs. That way, we can bring them the right candidate that matches those needs and can be successful. So it's getting to know the employers, finding those opportunities, which are much more limited. The area I work in is a little more suburban, so there aren't as many, there's still some of the same businesses as you would find, but there's fewer and there's less volume, so they have less employees to work, which means all their employees have to be able to do more and be counted on to do more which our participants, especially for their first job, may not be quite ready for. So one thing that's been really successful for me is, even though it's a struggle to get into those employers, once you do and you have a candidate that's great, then the employers will be open and say, hey, I have this opportunity. They'll email you, say, hey, I have these positions. So it's really kind of getting our name recognition, what we actually do to employers, and kind of building on those, which has been definitely stressful for the study, because we didn't, some of the areas we're going into, we didn't have those partnerships to lean on. So we had to develop new partnerships that way, which takes time.
Absolutely. We're talking to Chris and Cynthia from Bridges from School to Work. They're working on a study called the NextGEN Study. If you're hearing about this and you've never heard of Bridges before, I want to make sure that you go to bridgestowork.org, that you go and you hit the contact button and you fill out that contact form, whether it's for you and you're between the ages of 17 and 24, or you're a loved one who can help somebody who is 17 and 24 with a disability. This group of people who work at Bridges are so dedicated to the success of students. I cannot recommend enough just getting there and making the call. And the whole team has told me, even though they're only in 12 states currently, if you're in another state, you have the desire and need help, they will find a resource for you, which I just think is incredible. Cynthia, I wanted to come back to you and chat about the specific roles and tasks that might be challenging for some of the participants and how you guys help them succeed.
That is a big question. I think that it's such an individualized program. There's not a general answer I can give you, but I think one of the beautiful things about this program and what does make it so effective is because it's very individualized. I might have a student I meet and they are making eye contact with me. They're excited to go. They're calling me every other day saying, where's that job? And then, and it's the full spectrum to, feeling like you're doing everything you can to engage that participant, but there's something going on. And I think for a lot of students, trust is a challenge because of their previous experiences. There's definitely been an increase that I've seen since COVID of depression and anxiety. So if they're already, they have a diagnosis of a learning disability or really anything, the ADHD, all of that, the anxiety and depression just exacerbates those challenges. We can be there for them, make them feel more confident because they've got this partner and this support system. And sometimes, there's things going on at home that we don't even know about. And hopefully we eventually know about, and we can refer them. You were talking about referrals, we can refer them to other support services that can help them succeed in the other parts of their lives. So then they feel more ready to take on a job. We've seen, I know I have participants who have lost family members fairly recently, not just through COVID, but, other reasons. That contributes to all of this as well. And, the goal is that they trust us and they can get what they need, whether they're having more severe challenges or they just need that little extra boost. I don't know if that answers your question, but as I said, it's such an individualized program that it's hard to say this is the challenge. Attendance. Yeah, that's a big one. Attendance is a big one. After COVID, attendance, at least I think it's, national, but attendance in the schools plummeted after COVID. And I think that's something to look at as well.
I think sometimes it's about simple challenges like the time to give someone a prep interview, a ride to the interview. I can't tell you the amount of youth employment specialists I've talked to who actively drive people to the interviews, walk in, talk to the managers. Like, this is the kind of attention that I've never heard of anywhere else. And it's doing something that, in my opinion, should be taught in the schools to begin with, because some of these things are basic. And some of the things that the Bridges folks are doing with these kids is as simple as getting them the documents that they need to be able to go and get that job, because they didn't know how have the tools to do that. So, again, I was really trying to draw attention to the fact that it is very vast. It is very different. You guys do offer so much, and every person I talk to has a different perspective on it. So, again, I just appreciate what you guys are doing. I think it's really so drastically different from anything else out there. And that's why the NextGEN study is probably happening. And if you ask me, that's it. It's that personal touch, that care.
Absolutely.
Like, that's what these kids need. I mean, I have a child with special needs. I know what these kids need to be successful. And it's that extra little step, that belief. And like Chris was saying, once these employers get these kids who come to you and they've got crafted, they've been, molded to understand and learn, they're really great assets for these companies. Chris, what hope in the end do you hope that the NextGEN study will have on not only your program as participants, but, in many ways, the learnings might affect other organizations?
I think going through this process, I'm not too connected with the people that are conducting this study, but one thing that we've kind of gotten feedback from is that it's so hard to qualify exactly what we do and what makes us successful, because, as youth employment specialists, we all have autonomy to kind of do the job as what works for us, just as we go work with everybody individually. So my hope is to kind of pull out some of those things that make us special, and what really helps us be successful, and add that extra, like you said, taking the participants to job interviews, to looking for jobs, because like Cindy said, it is that anxiety. And the only way they're going to get over that anxiety is to actually challenge themselves and push themselves and go through it. And they need an advocate. Sometimes parents will see their children as they have been in the past, and may not see their capabilities that they have now and in the future. So it's our job to sometimes educate the parents that, these are what your children can actually do. They can work. They can do these things. So I think, just being able to educate and show what we do and how we do it.
Agreed. Cynthia, we have just a short time left. I want to end the episode by asking, what are the next steps for the study, and how do you see it shaping Bridges services? Do you think it will teach you guys new things, and how will you guys take that feedback and implement?
I hope it'll teach us things. They've given us a little information already as they're, analyzing the data. And I think it's more that we've been validated in things that if we've worked for Bridges for a while, we already know. I think it's they've learned that it is the secret sauce, as they call it. I hear that term a lot. It's not my term, but secret sauce for Bridges is that individualized attention, developing these trusting relationships with schools and the participants in our program. And, I think our availability to these students, they have our phone number. Like, if a student's in crisis, they can call me on the phone, and it's, they don't necessarily come to us all the time. We go to them, which I think, they're used to having to attend school from this time to this time, having to do this from this time to this time. And I think that personalized service is what they've realized is part of our success. And the hope with this study is to show that these kinds of programs are really important. These kinds of programs should be funded and increased. And having this early exposure to employment and the skills that it takes to get there impacts a person for the rest of their lives. It's not just what we're doing with these kids right now. This is going to impact these people that we work with later in life, and their children and their children and their children. So they're, our motto is the power of a job, right? So it is a very powerful thing. And the more programs like this, I think the better.
Absolutely. And if you are out there and you're between the ages of 17 and 24 years old, or you're a loved one of someone with a disability, make sure you go to bridgestowork.org. You go and you click on the contact button at the top, fill out this form, and you will start a journey that will change your life and will affect generations of your family, like Cynthia said, because I've seen it. I've talked to people. It's not just talk. It is actual action. I want to thank Bridges from School to Work for all the incredible work they do. And I want to thank the Bridges to Success podcast team. And we will see you all next time.